Hey guys, William here, aka Big Bastard, and this video is not the video you need, but it's the video you deserve. Or is that vice versa? Anyhow, this is a review of the just released, fact is, it was released last night on digital video. It will be released in, I think it's June or July, on DVD Blu-ray, and it's the much anticipated, very awesome Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated show from Warner Brothers and Viacom. Now, as far as the other videos, I'll be getting to those a little later for those of you who've been keeping up with me. I hope you enjoyed the last video I did. I actually did two videos, but one of those didn't come out because after unboxing and carefully describing my $40 Sky Commander action figure that my sister sent me as a Christmas gift, I realized I wasn't recording. But anyway, this I'm doing even though I'm in the last week of finals, and it's killing me. In fact, I'm really scrambling to get shit done. I felt I had to do this because it was fresh, and so I hope that you enjoy these reviews, because what I'm going to do is a short spoiler-free review, and then go a little more in-depth in the spoiler-filled review. So that said, let's just get into it. And so last night I took a little time, took about an hour and a half, and watched the Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated movie, and my mind was totally blown. I mean, this is a spectacular animated movie. I would say that it easily surpasses any comic book adaptation, because what they did was, for those of you who read the Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series, the original one, not 2 and 3 and 4, it stayed very true to that material. They had a lot of quotes that were actually drawn directly from the comic, and a lot of scenarios were drawn from the comic, but by the same token, they also managed to kind of change things up and kind of twist that story into something that we kind of expected, but then at the same time didn't expect. It had a lot of strengths, it had very few weaknesses, and I'm going to give a short rundown of that. I do want to add a caveat that doesn't really spoil anything, but one of the things I thought that they did that was really great for this animated movie was, in the comics, basically what happened was the turtles got transported from their world basically into the world where Gotham existed, and even Donnie made a comment about that, that basically where we come from, this place is like a fucking crater in New York, okay, or something to that extent. And here they actually took the turtles, had them track Shredder from their own time and own place into Gotham City, which is actually in the same time frame, or the same dimensional frame. So this is all an integrated universe that actually can coexist and integrate with each other, because both the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles New York and Batman's Gotham exist in this same dimension together. So I thought that was a stroke of genius for this, because otherwise it would have gotten too complex. You would have had to involve a extreme amount of either convolution or um, extraneous uh, prefacing to get to the point. And instead, what they did was they simplified this one thing, and they gave you a completely action-packed animated feature that is just mind-blowing. Now, that said, I will give you one warning that if you have young children, you should not be exposing them to this first of all, watch it yourself and then decide if it's too violent. But I'm going to tell you right now, there is a decapitation. You don't see the decapitation, but it's implied. And then you see the results of that decapitation as the body falls to the floor and the head rolls off. It's completely bloodless, but it was still shocking to see, in this kind of cartoon, because I'm aware that DC has gone very dark and edgy in their cartoons, and I love it. But I was not expecting that from this particular franchise, given the material that was in the comic. And I was really shocked to see that. I personally didn't mind it, but especially if you have younger children, you will. There are other acts of violence. There's a headshot with a throwing star or kunai, I don't remember which is very bloody. There's a stabbing from behind where the guy is raised up off the floor, and that's obviously bloody. And then a villain will use a severed hand to gain access to a confidential area. Trying not to get into too many spoilers here. Okay, now that last one was bloodless also, but obviously it's a disturbing visual for a lot of people, particularly if they're young. It is violent. There's a lot of action, and it's just it's one hell of a ride. It's what it is, and yet the story, a lot of times you worry about a cartoon placing emphasis on the action over the story, and the story is incredible. And what they've done is, while taking the original premise pretty much almost directly from the comic book, they tweak it here and there where the story's just a little different, but something you wouldn't expect and totally mind blowing. And there weren't, we talk about pros and cons, and so what I'm going to do here is basically give my pros and cons. The pros is that it is true to the comic book material, yet manages to deviate in a way that is meaningful. It's another pro that it has is that it's action packed without overwhelming the story. It's visually dynamic, and I mean, if you're a Batman or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, much less a Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, this is just your wet dream come true. Now, some of the cons, which are marginal, is as far as voice acting, I had, and I'll get more into this because I don't want to tell you what characters are in, so you can be surprised. But I was kind of mixed on the voice acting. There were some that, I mean, it's not that they should try to make it sound like every turtle in the past, but like for instance, Donatello. If you've noticed, Donatello has always sounded a certain way that's maybe it's not the same, but it's kind of close. And here you hear a Donatello that sounds very geeky, but by the same token, it's like, that just doesn't sound like Donatello to me. Raphael is another one, I expect Raphael to have a grittier kind of bass, and this he had good bass in this, but not really gritty as you would expect from Raphael. Leo and Mikey were done solid. Batman was done perfect. And that's really all the characters I'm going to go into. Because, first of all, I don't know if you've seen the preview or not. I imagine everybody has. But just in case you haven't, I don't want to kind of tip my hand and give away some of the characters that you might not have seen. Like I said, I'll do that in the spoiler-filled review. But yeah, so I had some issues with some elements of the voice acting. Obviously, again, the violence could be an issue for some people. Either if you have children and you want to see them, or you are just squeamish and don't agree with the darker, edgier stuff and that kind of thing with the violence. Surprisingly, there's no swearing that I can think of in this. But yeah, other than that, I'm not really thinking there's too many flaws in that, except there are times when There's a piece of dialogue from the movie, or I mean from the comic book, that they put into the movie but didn't do kind of the expanded dialogue that was in the comic. And that I found kind of disappointing in some areas. There was one area where I really found it kind of disappointing because the lengthier exchange was so much more entertaining, if you will. The other than that, the only con I can mention is, without going into too much detail, there is a particular individual who showed in the comics who is not shown in the show. I think they might have done that for. There's actually a few people missing from the comics that was in the show, but I think they've done that for simplicity. It it is a sticking point with me because it involves an event that we all in the comics thought was just totally kick ass and would like pay to see over and over again, you know. But you gotta do what you gotta do within the frame of reference that you've chosen. So I'm not gonna bash them on that. The movie didn't feel weak in any way that I can think of overall, other than those points I mentioned. But I mean, a lot of times you'll be sitting through an hour and a half movie and you'll be like, oh my god, is this going to fucking end? Even though an hour and a half is now actually the short end of movies. But there are some movies that, even though they're an hour and a half, you're like, oh my god, is this going to fucking end? Ever. Please just end. And that wasn't the case with this. Everything had purpose. Fact is, in some ways, you could say it had more purpose than some of what was in um, the comics. So overall, really excellent movie. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5 because it was just totally mind blowing. And definitely, if you haven't already, go to Amazon Prime, get your electronic copy of this today, and just totally sit back and be ready for one hell of a ride, because it's action packed, it's entertaining. At times, I don't know if you can actually accuse it of being overly thoughtful, but at times it does border on thoughtful. And everything is done with some sort of purpose. It's not like you tend to have with crossovers, where there are elements forced and smashed together just to make the crossover work. It felt very natural. A lot of that owing to the comic, but in areas where certain things were not like they were in the comic, it actually felt more natural than in the comic. It felt less coerced than certain elements in the comic. So props to that, because it is a difficult thing to pull off. So that's my kind of short review, hits and misses on Teenage Mutant Ninja, Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Again, available now, at least at Amazon. I don't know where else it is, but definitely available at Amazon. Has an electronic copy, if you will. The hard copy won't be out till, again, June or July. I don't remember which. But yeah, go over there if you haven't. Watch it. It is well worth it, because it is just fucking fantastic, mind blowing. And in the other interview, when you have watched it, go check out the other interview, spoiler filled interview, and you can see where I had to be generalized here, where the specifics start to come out, kind of make more sense in that vein. But this is just kind of the short overview, and this is Big Bastard signing out. I hope you catch the next one. Bye.